Board, Coach's Corner, Thursday evening, 9 p.m. Every Thursday night, we try to round up some of the best college coaches in the country to talk college baseball, youth baseball, travel baseball, etc. My name is Walter Beatty, a.k.a. Baseball Lifer. We do this to help parents and student athletes be informed, kind of hear from the coaches directly, hear what they think, how they recruit, etc. If you like what we're doing, it takes a big thank you for you to just hit that like button and, more importantly, hit the subscribe button if you can. Want to welcome tonight Paul Janish at Rice University, recruiting coordinator at Rice University. Paul, thank you for joining us.
No, Walter, good to be here, man. I appreciate the time.
Oh, you're very welcome. I appreciate your time. Want to kind of talk a little bit. We were kind of talking before we got started here earlier with regard to kind of restoring the Rice baseball program to national prominence. Under Wayne Graham, it was really year after year you'd kind of see them in a regional or in Omaha, and Lance Berkman and a few other prominent alums. What's the experience been like over the first 2 years while you've been with the program?
Yeah, it's good. Obviously, Jose Cruz Jr. got the head coaching job here last summer, and so we're going into the second year with Coach Cruz at the helm. And to your point, it's a different landscape of college baseball right now. Rice was really good for a long time. Obviously, I played here, and we had the opportunity to win the national championship in 2003. And like it or not, that was 20 years ago. So we're in the process right now of trying to restore the roster from top to bottom with regards to being athletic and obviously being strong on the mound and being a strong defensive team, which historically Rice always was. And I think at any level, the successful teams are going to do those things well. So that's what we're trying to do.
So can you talk a little bit about maybe a few differences? Let's not go back 20 years, but maybe 5-10 years ago with regard to college baseball then to college baseball now. Some of the things that may be a little bit more challenging or a little bit different that maybe some parents might not be familiar with.
Yeah, so the big elephant in the room there would be the transfer portal, right? Like that used to not be a thing. And if you did transfer, you had to sit out for a year, which is no longer the case. And, philosophically, I have my opinion about what it's probably doing to college baseball. But at the end of the day, there's just more players that are available more frequently. And, we were talking before we got on, but the availability of an older player is something that college coaches have to acknowledge. And to be honest with you, I don't think it's helping the high school guys out much, unless you're a pretty unique talent at the high school level. But it's a unique 18-year-old freshman that's going to be able to compete with a 20 or 21-year-old junior who's got two years of Division I experience potentially. So that's the biggest thing. Obviously, we got the emergence of the NIL money where guys are getting paid for different things, different types of endorsements, and there's a pretty large spectrum there with regards to what certain programs have available to them versus others. And the top of the food chain is kind of leading that charge. And I'm actually curious myself to see how that unfolds over the next couple of years. I assume that the snowball's rolling down the hill, and I don't think we're going to stop it, so to speak. But at the end of the day, I think it'll, in some way, shape, or form, kind of normalize or regulate in some way. But so those are a couple of the biggest things that the high school guys are having to deal with. And it's tough because even from a college baseball coach's standpoint, you get a guy on campus and provide him an opportunity, which, obviously every high school player is hopeful for. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that they play well or get an opportunity that maybe they wouldn't have had at another university at that time. And then they decide that the grass may be greener and the poor don't go somewhere else. So, it's a tough thing philosophically because you gotta kind of remove the emotion from it, and you got to understand, look, the players have that ability to do it. And as a result, college coaches are being forced to defend themselves as well. And that doesn't always work out for the betterment of the kid in question.
Now, it's a kind of a touchy subject. I get a lot of parents that, when I start talking to them about various programs, their first reflex is, well, what's the image and likeness money like? I mean, that's not anything that you can control. So is that something you can kind of explain to parents? That's not the university dealing with the athlete. That's, another, whether we call it a booster or a certain group associated, maybe a car dealer, a pizza shop owner, et cetera. But that's not anything that you as a coach get directly involved with, I can imagine.
Correct. Yeah, it is a touchy subject, and it's it's just something you got to be careful with. The biggest thing I would caution parents about in that instance is the fact that NIL money is in no way guaranteed. If I give you an athletic scholarship and you sign a letter of intent or grant aid that shows that you're going to get that scholarship, you're going to get that scholarship. When and college coaches really aren't supposed to use NIL money in the recruiting process. Obviously, whether or not that happens, I don't know. But that being said, that money is not guaranteed, and that I think it's unfortunate probably that some people are getting the wool pulled over their eyes with regards to that. But at the end of the day, it's part of the process now, and it's not changing. So that would be the biggest thing I would caution people of is if whatever that extra amount of money is of great importance with regards to being able to finance the bill for that particular college, then I think parents need to be aware that that's something that could change.
Well, I want to kind of go back a little bit because you brought up a really good point. And I noticed that with regard to your kind of process on the outside looking in, you're very, I won't say cautious, but you're slow. You're not going out there trying to jump on every 8th grader, 9th grader. You're really trying to look, evaluate, see what type of student athlete the player is as a complete and total package as opposed to just skill set. Can you talk a little bit about, if the high school athlete is kind of, I wouldn't say put in the back burner, but there's a reason for that. It's because in the portal or the JUCO transfer, you're getting a plug and play kind of now caliber player. But that doesn't mean you're not out looking for that high school player to come into your program and kind of bring that kind of talent level to develop over the first year or two.
No, 100%. And I still think organically, for at least for a program like ours, we kind of believe in bringing in the high school kid that kind of has the opportunity to develop in your program, and you get to know who he is and kind of rely on him. But to your point, it is making it more difficult on the high school player because that's who we're evaluating them against now is the older guy, and there's like I mentioned earlier, there's just no two ways about it. The older guy, in most cases, the experience is gonna play a factor. But with us specifically, we typically don't reach super early just because of the academic piece. And again, I'm in the minority on that. Most people would tell you, "Hey, man, go commit them, and who cares? It doesn't mean anything. If it doesn't work out, then no big deal." And maybe I'm getting it wrong because in some ways we're trying to avoid that. But Rice specifically is a little different place. I need to make sure that the people that we bring in, or do the best I can anyway, are in it for what we bring to the table. And baseball is a big part of it, but so is the academic piece. And my experience, having the opportunity to play here over the course of time and knowing a lot of the guys who have had success here, both in baseball and then after baseball, whether that was at the college level or the professional level, it is a certain kind of fit. And we try to promote that because those are the guys who have the most success here as a general rule.
Well, my thing is I'm a big proponent of trading athletic ability for academic excellence. I think that's really, at the end of the day, that's what being a student athlete at its core should be about. So let's talk about, Texas is a huge state. So I have one question from a parent. If you have a local or an in-state student versus an out-of-state student, all things being equal, are you going to really kind of get after the Texas student athlete, or is it like an equal opportunity situation for student athletes all around the country based on their academic and athletic transcript?
Yeah, so the lens that we look through there's no state lines because we're a private institution that's obviously highly academic. So it doesn't matter for all intents and purposes if you're from Texas or from Oregon. But historically, Rice's roster has been pretty Texas heavy just because, and I think most universities are, with the exception of a select few, but just because of the geographic aspect, in some ways, the farther you get away from our campus, the less well known, I guess, the Rice name is, if you will. But so historically, our roster has been Texas, but at this point, and because of the way that recruiting works now and the availability of information and social media and things of that nature, our net cast pretty wide, and so we have access to information about people from all over the country. So for us, being academic, it doesn't really being private, it doesn't really make a big difference. At some schools, there's going to be significant ability to provide aid based on whether that person is from in-state or out of state. That's just not something that we deal with.
Well, I want to encourage folks that are listening and watching, for those watching the stream, go ahead and put your questions live for me over on the question side. Just put that in, type that in. I'll be able to see it. If you see me put my glasses on, because I'm old and crusty and I have to have readers when I get these questions. And one of the questions that's come in, Paul, is, you just alluded to this, but I really think it's important for parents to understand the importance of your network, meaning, scouts that you've come across in the years, former players, former college and high school coaches. Can you talk a little bit about your network, and for parents that don't understand how that is used for reliability or a report, and not just going to a showcase and seeing a kid for the first time? You really have the ability all over the country to kind of get the lowdown, so to speak, on a student athlete.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, there's really nowhere in the country that I can't touch in some way, shape, or form with regards to knowing somebody, whether it's the Northeast or Northwest or whatever the case might be. So we just can't be everywhere. I mean, at the end of the day, and Twitter video is great or whatever, but you can't always tell a significant amount of intangibles based on video. We know that, right? So I always tell guys, even when I do camps and things of that nature, and I'm talking to people, I say, look, there's always somebody watching, kind of deal. And just because I may not have seen it with my own eyes, that there's a really good chance I know somebody that did. And so we just tell guys that, like, we rely heavily on travel ball coaches, and it's just like anything else. Over the course of time, you kind of develop relationships and figure out who you trust more and who you don't, and those kind of things, and who's a little bit more forthcoming and who's not. And me having the professional background, I feel fortunate in this sense too, because there's a lot of pro connections that, in particular in different parts of the country, those guys hear and see everything, and it's a network of people that help each other. So it's always easy, and I say easy. It's easy to get a hold of somebody that has information, and on the recruiting front, that's an invaluable piece of it.
Well, a lot of coaches have different philosophies as far as what they're looking for, whether it be analytics, metrics, the eyeball test. They want to wait until the lights come on in a meaningful game, i.e. high school or state tournament, et cetera. So when you're out evaluating a hitter, let's start with the hitters, and you're kind of getting a first look, where's your attention going to? Is it the stance, the balance, the feet, the hands? How are you evaluating a potential hitting prospect for Rice University?
Yeah, hitting is difficult because you don't always get to see guys against, what you would consider relatively good competition, right? I am a believer in body language. I think it tells a lot. I do think that, we discuss a lot about, bat to ball skills, right? And at our level, I still think that's a really significant part of it. I really appreciate a guy if you do have some element of statistics, maybe if it's at the junior college level or college level for a transfer portal guy, somebody who walks more than they strike out. I think that's a pretty telling stat with regards to somebody who's going to give you consistently good at bats. But then the other things are, like you mentioned, you're looking for somebody that's athletic. You'd love for a guy to have power, hit for average, and have a great strike zone awareness, but it's tough to get all of the things in one. So you try to sift through what you value, which in a lot of cases is going to be athleticism and bat speed. And you like I mentioned, the bat to ball, and you hope that over the course of time, those traits equate to becoming a pretty good college hitter. But it's a difficult thing from the standpoint of, I don't know, whatever term you want to use, whether that's grit or want to or whatever. Those things are very tough to evaluate. So going back in a short period of time, I should say. And so going back to the network and the guys that you know and trust, and the guys that get to be around the kids more than you do, we only get a limited amount of time that we get to see them. So, who are they when they're in the batting cage on Tuesday night when nobody's around, that kind of stuff. There's the character piece is a big part of it. And, you and I both know we've seen enough youth baseball games that their body language on and off the field is going to tell you a lot. In the dugout, how they walk in and out of the stadium, like, whether or not even the potential discussion with a coach or parent on their way out, or, those kind of things, they tell a lot. So I'm not saying that the at-bats in the game don't matter, because obviously they do, but there's a whole lot more going on if you're paying attention,
Well, I try to inform student athletes that when they get off the bus, they're basically telling a story. And I really try to emphasize that with regard to their warm-up routines, how they're playing catch, the stretching, being a part of the team, etc. So when you're watching, let's say, an in and out, and you're maybe there to see the opposing team, do fielding skill sets jump out at you as much as velocity and exit velocity as far as hitters and pitchers? When you're watching a game in an in and out environment, do fielders kind of jump out at you at all? Do they get their rightful place within the recruiting pecking order?
Yeah, I think it's a tough thing to evaluate at times because if you go watch a guy play for a game or two, if it's a shortstop or a second baseman, he may or may not get, uh, 1 or 2 ground balls, or he may get 6. And so again, it goes back to saying, pay attention to what he's doing before the game. So playing catch, like I'm kind of a believer that, you can watch a guy throw and play catch and he's going to tell you some things like whether or not just from an assertive standpoint, how the ball comes out of his hand is there the hamster on the wheel running around upstairs kind of deal in between innings. Like you should be able to play catch in between innings. I mean, the ball shouldn't hit the ground very often kind of thing. The other piece there is, did he have a good at bat and what's it look like the next inning? Kind of, there's some variables there that you just over the course of time, you start paying attention to, and for better or for worse, you can't not see them. You know what I mean? So it is tough when you don't get to see guys enough. And in the current landscape of like the showcase circuit, we're like, we're going to go to Hoover, we're going to go to Atlanta, or we're going to go to, whatever the tournament may be. And you're just going to get a limited amount of reps on these kids. And that makes it tough. And I think that goes back to also a lot of times colleges are geographic, they're regional because they get to see those kids more. You're going to get to see them, the guys better that are coaching them. So you just have a higher sense of certainty with regards to who you're getting.
So I'm going to ask this question because it's kind of the elephant in the room, so to speak. Not a lot of parents get the opportunity to hear the responses, but it used to be, at least when my day, when dinosaurs roamed the earth, you had your high school coach, you played for your high school, you played for your Legion coach. You had to be really good at both to get on a varsity field or a Legion field. And now it's kind of become like a customer service industry where we have a lot of travel ball and showcases, things that people pay for and therefore expect a return on their investment. Do you find it's hard for student athletes to assimilate into that culture of a meaningful team experience where there's work and development, and they come out of these programs where they're, the star and the attention is paid to them? Do you feel like travel baseball kind of presents maybe a false sense of security as opposed to the old days of the high school kids and meaningful games and things of that nature?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. It's become, there's just so much, the economics of the travel ball circuit and the showcase world is real, right? And so like it's supply and demand. So there's people that are willing to pay a lot of travel teams money, and as a result, that generally correlates with playing time. So they're gonna, to your point, there's expectation that is created, and it's not always warranted. And so yeah, I think you're absolutely right with regards to dealing with, I don't love the phrase like the kids these days, but just in general, there's a barrier to be broken down for guys when they get on campus, generally speaking. And you can't do that. I'm going to use my college coach as the example, right? You can't do it maybe the same way that Coach Graham did to us when we were in school,
right?
Because there's a couple of different reasons. One of which is the HR department, and the other one is the transfer portal,
right?
And so like you get a guy on campus, and you're unfortunately you're still recruiting him. And that dynamic, the travel ball dynamic, I think has created a situation where, the narrative, whether it be from home or in the car on the way home from the game, or, it's just not, there's not a ton of stick to itiveness like you're referencing when you were young. There's not a whole lot of, hey, if you don't like it, play better. But that being said, it's the world we live in. So, you gotta adapt. And that's what, I think most people in college baseball are trying to do. And it's the travel ball world isn't going to go away. There's plenty of kids and there's plenty of parents that are willing to pay, and that in a lot of ways, on the flip side of that coin, that's really, really good for baseball and youth baseball and those kind of things. A lot of guys are probably getting opportunities that they may not have before.
Well, one of the things I want to talk to you about specifically, because this is really something that I get inundated with messages, direct messages. Parents don't believe me when I say that a college coach really likes late bloomers. They like those guys that are grinding those first few years in high school, hit the weight room, have a little chip on their shoulder, and then that junior and senior year, everything kind of comes together. What I would like you to discuss is there are opportunities for those student athletes that are currently juniors and even members of the 2023 class, seniors in high school this year. Not everything goes to eighth grade freshmen and sophomores, correct?
Yeah, I mean, and again, that's the super young recruiting is a game that it's more marketing than it is anything else. I mean, if you really keep track of who guys that commit when they're in eighth grade or ninth grade, if somebody did a study and really paid attention to where those kids actually end up, like it's probably borderline comical, and so we can play the Twitter game and being committed and the whole deal, and everybody, I say the phrase I use is drinking the Kool-Aid. Everybody's drinking the Kool-Aid, but it's just, I mean, unfortunately, the term commitment just doesn't mean the same thing that it used to, and that's okay. That's just the way that it is. So it's just part of the dynamic. It's part of the recruiting world. And is it good or bad? I mean, it's probably more bad, but I don't know. I mean, it is what it is. I know that it's not changing. But to your point about the older guy, like relatively older guy, like the junior in high school that comes into his own and develops, and whether that's physically or mentally or both, and now all of a sudden you got a guy that is doing exactly what he's supposed to at the appropriate age. He's still gonna find a place to play. Is it junior college for a year? Is it a small Division I for a year? I don't know, but like there's gonna be somewhere to go for a baseball player.
So, talking about the re-emergence of Rice University, I always get a lot of student athletes or parents after these types of discussions that will blow my email up or my text messages up. Am I the caliber of player that Rice is looking for? So can you just tell everybody that finds their way to the podcast or the stream in the future what you as a staff are looking for with regard to being a Rice University baseball player?
Yeah, so like we referenced earlier, I mean, the academic piece is significant for us. That's not going away, which I look at that as an opportunity. Like to your point of what you said earlier, utilizing baseball to achieve academic excellence. I mean, that's the reason I went to Rice, and a bunch of guys I played with went to Rice. I mean, I dang sure wasn't going to get into Rice on my own. And I mean, I'm the one kind of screwing it up being a college baseball coach, but a bunch of the guys I played with are making a whole bunch of money. So the academic piece is real for us. We're trying to get back to, like we said, we need to get good on the mound. We got to be good defensively. We're limited on the amount of people that we can bring in terms of, I can't bring in 25 guys a year like some schools can, and that's one of our speed bumps maybe. But on the flip side, it's an opportunity, right? And when I tell a kid and a parent that we're only going to bring in 11 or 12 guys every class, like that should be significant. It should make sense. But so we're looking for versatility. Relative to position players, we need guys that have the ability to we want to be athletic so they can do some things and, create some offense and play defense and all that stuff. But we're probably looking for a more well-rounded athlete than what some schools might be. But, that's who we are. So we try to embrace it and find guys that, want to be here for the right reasons and then go from there.
I love when you talk about versatility. So many young players want to be shortstops, and everybody wants to gravitate to this one position. And I always try to tell guys, you're an infielder. So let a coach know you're an infielder. You take some fly balls in the outfield. But I always try to tell second baseman and shortstop, you really want to guarantee your opportunities at the higher levels, learn how to catch. If we take Jorge Posada, Russell Martin, Craig Biggio, those guys were infielders that became catchers, and they played infield in college. But I always get pushback. So when you talk about versatility, that's a big deal to a college coach, right? Having the ability to play multiple positions to get your bat in the lineup.
Yeah, versatility and / reliability, right? Like they go hand in hand. But yeah, you're exactly right. Like the ability to play catch is significant. And I got to play the game of baseball way longer than I probably should have. Because I could play catch. I could catch it and throw it straight, and so I'm self-admittedly a bit biased towards that because it, people say if you hit, they'll find somewhere for you to play. Well, if you catch everything and the guys out at first, you'll find your way on the field too. And so it's a tough thing to to convey to people at a young age that want to feel like they're the shortstop or whatever the case is. But here's the thing that we go back to, like, the ball doesn't lie. Okay. If you're the shortstop, you're going to be playing shortstop. And in the meantime, if you're not the shortstop, then be the best third baseman or second baseman you can be and go from there. But I'm with you. You just have to provide some versatility. You have to provide maybe even more or as important reliability. Those are two things that just are not going out of style. I mean, you see it, you can go wherever you want, whether that's little league or the big league level. I mean, guys that are reliable, it's invaluable. You know who you're going to get every day, which is something that coaches are all looking for.
Well, I know I got a lot of people asking me, A, are you active on Twitter? B, do you respond to emails? Can you just put out, there for people, do you like to get videos? Do you like to have emails? What is it that you would prefer if somebody wants to get in front of you at Rice?
Yeah, so either way, I mean, I'm not as active on Twitter as I should be probably, but I definitely check the stuff that people send me. I'm not a huge poster of content myself, and email's fine. I mean, I not just me, but college coaches in general. Obviously, we receive a lot of emails. That being said, we filter through them, so that's our job. And I will say it is an indication too. If it's always funny at times though when you get the email that's addressed to the wrong coach or the wrong school, because it's apparent that was not on purpose. But it is a way to show coaches, that program, hey, this is what you bring to the table is of interest to me. We probably take that a little bit more seriously than some because, like I mentioned, the academic piece. But any of that is relevant at this point. Twitter is probably a little bit more immediate if you're going to send something to me on that. But email is also fine.
Okay, so if you're active on Twitter and you want to follow Coach, he has a Twitter profile. You want to email him. What's the email address, Paul? Just for those that are asking me.
Yeah, it's prjanish@rice.edu.
Okay, and I'm going to put that in the description below, and I'm going to make sure I put his Twitter handle. But understand he might not be active on Twitter. And for those of you that have been asking, I know we have a lot more questions, but with every coach, I have to be respectful. Most of these guys are still in season. They have still responsibilities with not only at home, but within the baseball program. So I will get to questions. I'll send them to Coach at the conclusion of tonight's episode. I'll email them or converse with them via text. I'll get the answers to your questions. Paul, I want to say thank you. I find your candor and your honesty to be refreshing. I really appreciate you taking the time while you're in season. I hope to get to know you a lot better over the course of the next year and beyond, especially when my grandsons are in Houston, and maybe, who knows, maybe they'll become Owls in the future. How's this for a name? Bo Diesel Beatty. That's Texas all day long.
That sounds very intentional. I appreciate it.
Well, Paul, I want to say thank you. And again, if you like what this type of format is and what it's become, can you let us know, A, by subscribing, B, liking the YouTube channel? Heck, if you're seeing us on Twitter, spread the word. Give us a retweet or a thumbs up or whatever the thing is to do on Twitter. I want to thank you. Again, next week we're off because it's Thanksgiving. We'll return on December 1st with Jay Ullman, Tulane University, and that will be at 9 p.m. Eastern time on December 1st. Paul, thank you very much.
I appreciate the time, Walter. Have a good Thanksgiving.
You too. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. Hoot 'em.